Newcastle 1, Arsenal 0. But the big question is Arsenal's title race over? If Manchester City win, they're 8 points clear. If Liverpool win, they are 7 points clear. A shock defeat for Arsenal. They have to learn from this. 2 defeats in the last 3. That you cannot have that when you're trying to win a league title. Simply not good enough. In my opinion, they were toothless today. They could have played that game 3 or 4 times over. They wouldn't have scored. Newcastle set up perfectly. They got the game plan. We're going to break it down, and there's a lot to get into. Make sure you go down and drop a like if you haven't already. Make sure you have subscribed to the channel. We are steamrolling our way towards 30,000. We're under 700 away now. We're 657 to be precise. But there's still a little bit of a way to go. So make sure you have subscribed. Newcastle 1, Arsenal 0. Alexander Isak, dagger. Unbelievable goal, that. It don't matter how strong your defense is. When a ball comes into the box like that, yes, of course, Gabriel has got to be tighter to Isak, but it genuinely was a phenomenal ball. In my personal opinion, I thought Wanyeri should have probably started this game. You knew Newcastle were going to have a low block. You knew Newcastle were going to have no space in behind. And in the combination passing, it has got to be so fast to break down a low block. We knew Newcastle's game plan from a neutral perspective was going to be to sit back and counter. You know, the difference between Newcastle against Chelsea and Newcastle against Spurs is when Chelsea beat Newcastle, everything was fast. 1-2, pass and move, creating space, trying to pick the lock. And Newcastle come out to play against Chelsea because Arsenal are the stronger team. Now, they completely shut it down against Arsenal. They went with a 4-3-3. 2 physical midfielders in there, in Bruno Guimaraes and, of course, Joelinton. You've also got the likes of Longstaff in there, who's a good player. Willock. It's a very physical side, Newcastle. I thought their fullbacks were excellent today. Livramento and Hall, really strong fullback pairing. They didn't give Martinelli or Saka any space whatsoever. Gordon was really good today. Alexander Isak, that goal, we'll get onto that in a second. The Arsenal lineup of a 4-4-2 predominantly, but it was more of a 4-3-3 with Martinelli out on the left, Trossard in the 10, Havertz up front, and Saka out wide. Absolutely not good enough from an Arsenal perspective today. We'll start with the Newcastle goal. Gordon gets down on that right-hand side, and the ball genuinely is like chef's kiss. It is one of the best crosses you'll see all season. Genuinely was a phenomenal cross. Now, Gabriel and Saliba in that situation have to talk to each other more. And Saliba has got to tell Gabriel Gabriel has to stay touch tight, but the gap between the two centre-backs was far too big when the ball goes into the box. And Alexander Isak is very good in the air. Gabriel is equally as good in the air. And Alexander Isak just gets the better of him. And the Swedish striker leaps, makes it 1-0, and it is a fantastic header. You know, the Gordon cross was genuinely ridiculous. You know, I think it's Isak's 16th goal in 17 starts at St. James's Park. Raya's got absolutely no chance. You know, Arsenal had a couple of chances in the first half. It was cleared off the line. I think it was Gabriel Martinelli, or it might have been Mikel Merino, and it was Lewis Hall off the line. But just not good enough. Too slow, lethargic. You know, Newcastle stuck to their game plan, and they were rewarded for their game plan. They were very intense, sitting back, but you know, making sure you're switched on, making sure your concentration levels are up there, and they were really good today. Newcastle in that first half. You know, Arsenal had an XG of 0.44. 0.61, and Newcastle was 0.44. Now at halftime, I'm thinking, right, Arteta has got to make a change here. He has to make a change here, 100%. Whether it's Ethan Wanyeri, probably should have come on at halftime, in my opinion. I looked at the Arsenal bench and they had Ben White. I'll bring the bench up on screens for you guys to see it. Ben White, Jesus, Zinchenko, Jorginho, Wanyeri, Kivior, Sterling, Neto, Miles, Lewis, Skelly. Now, I looked at the most creative player on that is Ethan Wanyeri, which is a 17-year-old. He should have come on at halftime, in my opinion. But Arsenal lost there last year and they've lost there this year. They lacked intensity. They lacked composure. They lacked a threat today. Not good enough from Arsenal whatsoever. Now, the question is, going into that second half, why did Ethan Wanyeri not come on at halftime? He did come on around the hour mark. Now, Arsenal, brought on Ben White for Timber. They brought on Jesus for Trossard. And they brought on Zinchenko for Mikel Merino. The Mikel Merino change at the time didn't make sense because I think he's a threat from set pieces. But the idea was to put Ben White at right, Timber at right back, Zinchenko at left back, and move Thomas Partey back into a defensive-minded midfield position and have Declan Rice as an advanced state and, of course, Wanyeri as the 10. Now, you're up against one of the most physical midfields in the league. They can afford to bring on Tonali off the bench, who is a good midfielder, who understands his role in his team, who's won league titles at AC Milan. He's a good player. He comes off the bench. Now, towards the 70th minute, I'm like, Arsenal have got to go for this now. They have got to put their foot on the floor and go for it. 100%. They've got to go for it now. But it just seemed like it was too slow. There was no urgency. There was no bravery from Arsenal. No one wants to take their man on. It was sideways, sideways, sideways. I don't know how much you can necessarily put on Arteta. I don't know how much you can really put on the players. But if you're chasing Manchester City, if you are trying to win a league title, every single point matters. And that's a defeat away at Bournemouth, and that's a defeat away at Newcastle. In between that, they won at Shakhtar, they won at Preston, and of course, they drew to Liverpool. But if Manchester City win, they're 8 points clear. 8 points after 10 games is huge. I'm not saying Arsenal can't make that up because I think they can. City have made it up before. So why can't Arsenal? But right now, today, simply not good enough. You've also got Liverpool playing. If Liverpool beat Brighton, which, let's be honest, City and Liverpool, both, you imagine, would win their games. And the fact that Arsenal could be as low as 7th today, that is not good enough. Arteta has got to figure out how to get more out of these players. If Villa beat Spurs on Sunday, which I don't think they will, I think we will beat Villa. But Chelsea, I imagine, probably will get a good result against Man United. If Chelsea draw with United, they go above Arsenal. If Brighton, if Brighton somehow get a result at Liverpool, they go above Arsenal. If Nottingham Forest beat West Ham, they go above Arsenal. So I don't necessarily think all these results will happen. And there is a chance that Liverpool and City could drop points. Man City going to Bournemouth away is a tough place to go. But Arsenal have got to get it into their heads that they can't rely on other teams now. You're in a title race. You are in a title race now. You have got to take the bull by the horns and start getting more positive results. 2 losses at your last 3 games. Only 2 wins at your last 5. I don't necessarily think the title race is over because we are only 10 games in when it sounds crazy to say. But at the same time, Manchester City and Liverpool are different animals. They've been there. They've seen it. They've done it. Guardiola is on the verge this season maybe of doing a 5-peat. These Liverpool players, a lot of the players in that team were the same players that won a Champions League, that were Klopp's Premier League winners, that were Klopp's winners that won 2 domestic trophies and were 2 games away from winning a quad. So, not good enough from Arsenal's perspective. They have got to switch up. 100%. No ifs, no buts, no maybes. Arsenal have got to improve. They cannot play like that. That was absolutely... they looked a shadow from themselves. A shadow from themselves. And Arsenal will be kicking themselves, to be honest. I think they'll be. I don't know how much blame you put on the manager. I don't know how much blame you put on the players. And of course, Bukayo Saka, he may have an Achilles injury now. He was hobbling around. He's a true, he's a warrior. He played through it. But if he's out, if you look at their next games coming up, they got Chelsea away next. Like, that is, yeah. Inter Milan away. And this is what I was saying on the football terrace. The margins are so fine. If they won today, there'd be two or 3 points within Liverpool and City. But now they've lost, and they've got Inter Milan on Wednesday night, and they've got Chelsea next Sunday. Champions League game away to Sporting. This Arsenal team is better than losing to Newcastle. Arsenal have better players, but Eddie Howe knew what the game plan was. He knew he had to sit back. He knew he had to hit them on the counter. He knew Isak was obviously a top forward. Gordon was very good today as well. Some great recoveries from him. Like I said, the fullback pairing of Livramento and Hall, really, really good. Not good enough from Arsenal today. You've got to, when you're trying to win a league title, every single game matters. You can't go in, and I'm not saying Arsenal go into these games with arrogance, but you can't go into these games with arrogance. Absolutely, you cannot. You have to, be on the top of your game every single week. Every point matters, and dare I say, if Arsenal was 7th after 10 games, I don't know what you guys think. I'd love to know your opinion. Make sure you put it down in the comments. On Newcastle today, they've got themselves back into the top 8. Really, really good performance. They've beaten some good teams at St James's Park this season. They've beaten Chelsea in the cup. They've beaten Spurs in the league. They've now beaten Arsenal. And you look where Newcastle are, a couple of wins, and all of a sudden we're talking about them being in and around the top 4. The margins are so fine in the Premier League. 1 minute we were talking about Eddie Howe getting sacked. 2 weeks later, he's beating Chelsea and Arsenal in back-to-back games. One in the cup and one in the Premier League. So, Arsenal defensively a wobble today, in my opinion. Chelsea, their goal difference is better. If Liverpool and City both win at home today, which you expect, if City win away to Bournemouth and Liverpool beat Brighton, they probably will extend their goal difference close to around the 15 mark, which is already 9 ahead of Arsenal. So Arsenal have got to have a look at themselves and say, if we want to win this title, we've got to be better. From a City perspective, we've got to be thinking, we just keep going as we are. And Liverpool will be thinking, we just keep going as we are. Arsenal are now the chasers. I always believe it's better to be the chasers than the leaders because there's a hell of a lot more pressure on the leaders. But when you're chasing, you have got to make sure you get maximum points. Let me know your thoughts down below. Make sure you have dropped a like on the video. That was, for me, if you're an Arsenal fan, a kick in the backside. Me, I'm looking forward to our game tomorrow at Villa. If we get a couple of good wins, why can't we? We've just beaten Manchester City. Why can't we get back into the top 4? We win tomorrow. We're on 16 points. So let me know your thoughts down below. Make sure you drop a like. Make sure you have subscribed. And I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you for watching. I am